This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Palestinians in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip held funeral processions for 7 martyrs killed in an Israeli attack. Meanwhile, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas strongly condemned this heinous massacre and warned that the ongoing Israeli policy of killing, assassinations, and an escalation in violence will drag the entire region to further deterioration and instability, and it will also lead to dangerous repercussions.
President
Mahmoud Abbas called on the international community, including the International Quartet and the American administration, to immediately put an end to these Israeli criminal episodes targeting the Palestinian people. 7 Palestinians were martyred during the past few hours in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Mr. Abbas strongly condemned these heinous massacres, warning that the ongoing Israeli policy of killings and assassinations will drag the region into further deterioration and instability, and it will lead to dangerous consequences. Meanwhile, Jamal Nazal, the spokesman for the Palestinian National Liberation Movement Fatah in the West Bank, strongly condemned the recent Israeli escalation in the Palestinian territories, saying that the Israeli government is trying to derail the Palestinian National Dialogue Conference that is underway. Mr. Bassem Naim, the Palestinian Minister of Health, stated that these heinous massacres committed by the Israeli government in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip are part of the premeditated campaign targeting the Palestinian people. He condemned the recent Israeli criminal attack that killed several Palestinians and injured dozens of others, including members of the press and Department of Public Health and medical institutions.
Today's attacks on emergency personnel prove that the Israeli occupation government does not abide by international laws and accords, calling for the protection of members of the medical field and health institutions even at times of war. The government of the Israeli occupation forces, which called for the protection of members of the medical field and health institutions even at times of war. The government of the Israeli occupation forces targeted members of the medical field during its recent aggression. The Israeli occupation army often targets members of the medical sector, including members of the Ministry of Health, the Palestinian Red Crescent, the Red Cross, and the UNRWA.
Meanwhile, Palestinians in the northern Gaza Strip held a funeral procession for 4 martyrs killed in an Israeli airstrike targeting a civilian car in the area of Atara in the town of Beit Lahya in the municipality of northern Gaza. The martyrs are Muhammad Khalil Matar, Yusuf Abu al-Maiza, Muhammad Abu Shanib, Sabri Talyak. Mourners repeated slogans condemning the ongoing heinous Israeli crimes against the Palestinian people. They also called on the international community to immediately put an end to this premeditated Israeli aggression against our people. 9 Palestinians, including some paramedic staff, were injured in this recent Israeli aggression in the northern Gaza Strip. Palestinians in the municipality of Tulkaram held a funeral procession for Mr. Osama Ahmed Hussein al-Namri, who was killed by an Israeli special hit squad in the town of Anbata. Palestinians in the Balata refugee camp and the city of Nablus held a funeral procession for Mr. Hani al-Saka, who was killed in an Israeli incursion in the camp. In addition, Palestinians in the town of Qabtiya and the city of Jenin held a funeral procession for Mr. Tariq Zakarna, who was gunned down by an Israeli hit squad in the town of Kabatia west of Jenin.
France expressed disappointment at the recent Israeli incursion in the northern Gaza Strip, which had killed 4 Palestinians and injured 9 others. This was the first incursion since the Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip in 2005. The spokesman for the French Foreign Ministry, Galmet Mati, had expressed disappointment at the Israeli incursion in the Gaza Strip, which is under the control of the Palestinian National Authority.
high court battle is brewing over the decision by Interior Minister Ronnie Bar-On to deny residency rights in Jerusalem to 4 senior Hamas officials in the Palestinian Authority. Bar-On has issued an ultimatum to the 4, who are Jerusalem Affairs Minister Khaled Abu Arafa and 3 PA legislators Muhammad Abu Tir, Ahmed Abu Atun and Mahmoud Tutah. The Interior Minister says they must renounce their membership in Hamas or leave Jerusalem. The 4 were given warning letters last night at the Jerusalem police station. The letter obliges them to cut all ties with the Palestinian Authority in 2 months, or steps will be taken against them. The Palestinian officials say they have no intention of signing the document and will fight it by all means at their disposal. Hamas leader Khalid Mashal today rejected the proposal by PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas to hold a referendum on Palestinian recognition of Israel's right to exist in the 1967 borders. Mashal says the Palestinian people has already expressed its views in last January's elections. Mashal was speaking after a ceremony for 2 Islamic Jihad members killed by a car bomb in Lebanon last week. Mashal also criticized the ultimatum issued by Mahmoud Abbas. Last Thursday, Abbas gave the Hamas government 10 days to agree to recognize Israel, or else he will go ahead with a referendum. Today, Hamas prisoners in Israeli jails called on their government to recognize Israel. And here at home, the government is trying to reach agreement with the Yesha Settlers Council on the evacuation of 24 illegal outposts in the West Bank. If the 2 sides are unable to reach agreement in the next few weeks, Prime Minister Olmert is likely to order IDF forces and police in to evacuate the outposts. According to government sources, the first outposts to be dismantled will be those whose residents have been involved in violent attacks on neighboring Palestinians. Among them are 3 in the Nablus area: Scali Farm near Elon Moreh, the Arusi Farm, otherwise known as Bracha Bet, and Hill 725 near Yitzhar.
Condemnations against the latest border violations poured in from top layers of the international community, with the UN Chief Kofi Anan calling for restraint. Anan also urged Beirut to assert control over the use of force from its sides of all the borders. Meanwhile, France urged both sides to respect the UN-drawn blue line. For its part, Israel said if Hezbollah will try to build again its infrastructure along the northern border and attack Israel again, they will be ready to destroy it again. The details with Yumna Tiyara.
UN Chief Kofi Anan called for restraint after rockets fired into Israel from South Lebanon triggered tit-for-tat clashes. Anan also urged Beirut to assert control over the use of force from its side of the border, known as the Blue Line, 1 day after the rocket attacks were followed by Israeli air raids on Palestinian and Hezbollah bases deep inside Lebanon. Anan's spokesman, Stéphane Dujarric, said in a statement that the Secretary General was pleased that the United Nations interim force in Lebanon and his senior representatives in the area were able to broker a cessation of hostilities, and he commends the government of Israel and the government of Lebanon for avoiding further escalation. He added that Anan continued to follow the situation closely and called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint and respect fully the Blue Line. France in turn strongly condemned what it called the dangerous incidents, urging both sides to avoid escalation. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Jean-Baptiste Mattei said that his country reminds both sides of their obligation to respect the UN-drawn Blue Line. Mattei added that these incidents were a sign on the need for the Lebanese government to regain its sovereignty over all its territory in accordance with UN resolutions 1559 and 1680. Tensions were still running high after the series of attacks across the border on Sunday that left a pro-Syrian Palestinian militant and a Lebanese Hezbollah fighter dead and 2 Israeli soldiers injured. General Gal Hirsch, in charge of Israel's forces along the border, told Israeli radio, quote, "We hit them hard and took out many targets."
We are ready for another Hezbollah attack. I hope that won't happen. I hope that the clue is well understood in the Lebanese side. I hope that the Lebanese government will redeploy its forces along the northern border, and we will respect that redeployment if that would happen. If Hezbollah will try to build again its infrastructure along the northern border and will attack again, we will have to destroy it again. And if they will just put their terrorists along the border, we will be ready for any order that we will have from the Israeli government.
The rocket attacks from Lebanon hit deeper into Israel than ever before near the town of Safed, and residents of the northern towns of Kiryat Shmona and Nahariya were ordered into shelters for several hours. Israeli warplanes violated Lebanon's airspace again yesterday. The Lebanese army said that 10 enemy fighter bombers violated Lebanese airspace twice in the middle of the day. The warplanes overflew the entire country and broke the sound barrier over the southern port city of Tyre.
في الملف الأمني استشهد 7 مواطنين وأصيب 30 بجروح.
7 Iraqi citizens were martyred and 30 others were injured when a vehicle exploded near an auto showroom this afternoon in the heart of the city of Hilla. According to the Iraqi security forces, a number of cars were burnt by the terrorist and criminal attack. In a separate attack, 2 employees in the Interior Ministry were martyred by a criminal mortar shell attack that targeted the Interior Ministry building. According to the ministry, the attack targeted 4 police officers. 2 other police officers were martyred when an explosive device exploded in Wizara area in Baghdad. 1 woman was also martyred by gunfire.
في إطلاق نار داخل المدينة.
Iraq is witnessing a series of terrorist attacks. 2 police officers were injured when an explosive device exploded in the Wazariya in Baghdad. Security sources said that 1 mortar shell landed outside the Interior Ministry in the center of Baghdad, murdering 2 female employees that worked in the ministry and injuring 4 police officers. Another mortar shell landed in a soccer field, injuring 3 janitors who were transported to the Kindi hospital to receive medical treatment. In Baghdad, a car that was carrying a missile launchers exploded before the missiles were launched toward the Interior Ministry. According to the ministry, the incident did not result in any injuries. In the city of Sadr, residents held a funeral procession for a man who was martyred in Al-Qazimiyya by a terrorist explosion near the shrine of Musa al-Qazim, peace be upon him.
Americans committed violations against civilians as a result of wide-scale and violent riots and confrontations, killing more than 13 people after U.S. soldiers opened fire on the crowd of demonstrators.
An American military vehicle crashing into a civilian one was enough to be the first spark of anger and protest against the foreign forces in general and the U.S. forces in particular in Afghanistan. The car accident took place on the road that leads to the northern entrance of the Afghani capital. An American military vehicle crashed into a civilian vehicle, killing 6 civilians and wounding many others.
I was in the area of the incident. We demand the arrest of the individuals who fired at the crowds of people and killed them.
After the accident, hundreds of angry Afghanis gathered condemning the American presence, chanting "Down with America" and the foreign forces in Afghanistan. This gathering quickly turned into wide-scale violent clashes between the 2 sides. The protesters surrounded the American tanks, throwing stones at them. The U.S. soldiers responded by firing randomly at the angry crowd to disperse them, killing and wounding dozens of Afghani civilians.
Those protesting the accident gathered, and when the police arrived, they began firing at us. I can say that at least 13 people were killed.
There is a clear presence of weapons and soldiers in the streets of Kabul after the Afghani police failed to control the anger of the protesters, who tried to raid a government building and set it on fire. The residents of Kabul have resumed their uprising 30 years after the Russian forces first invaded Afghanistan.
again. There is a public dissatisfaction and anger. Businesses have closed their doors. The presence of weapons is apparent. Will this car accident transform into a public intifada against this foreign presence?
The Afghani capital, Kabul, returned to calm today after wide-scale riots erupted yesterday, during which at least 14 civilians were killed after an American convoy was involved in a car crash. Afghani forces were deployed throughout Kabul following violent demonstrations that shook the city. Thousands of Afghanis demonstrated when at least 7 people were killed and 40 others were wounded in riots that erupted after an American vehicle was involved in a deadly car accident earlier in the day.
قافلة عسكرية أمريكية في حادث مروري قاتل في وقت سابق.
Calm has returned to the tense capital of Kabul. Life appears to have returned to normal. Businesses have reopened their doors one day after bloody incidents, and demonstrations took place in many parts of the city. The army, security forces, and police increased their presence in official districts, in front of government administrations and public institutions.
There is an invisible hand that is trying to create the illusion that a secure country has experienced a security lapse at a time when every Afghani is trying to build a stable and secure life for himself and his family.
In the past 4 years, the streets and markets in the center of Kabul have gotten used to large crowds and a fast-paced lifestyle. On the day of the demonstrations, the streets were empty of pedestrians and heavy traffic except for the protesters, police, and army. After the American vehicle became involved in a car crash, angry Afghani citizens went to the streets to express their anger towards the U.S. forces.
Actually, the incident was regrettable and deliberate. I saw what happened. I saw the American occupation vehicle crash into a civilian car, horrifying passers-by. At least 13 or 14 people died in this street.
عكست أحداث يوم الاثنين العنيفة وجود خلل ما في أجهزة الأمن والشرطة الأفغانية.
Monday's violent events resulted in an increase in the presence of security forces and Afghani police, which are not fully prepared to confront incidents like these. At the same time, in the streets of Kabul, there is an absence of peacekeeping forces, ISAP, which support the local forces to maintain security and stability. This street witnessed American shooting at the Afghani protesters at the start of Monday's bloody events. Today, we see that relative calm has returned to the capital of Kabul. These people hope that yesterday's horrifying events do not happen again.
مرة أخرى عبد الناصر سنجي قناة أبو ظبي كابول.
Tehran strongly rejects any suspension in its uranium enrichment, calling on P5 plus Germany not to demand extra commitments from Iran beyond its NPT obligations. Foreign Ministry spokesman Hamid Reza Safi told reporters Tuesday that Iran has not received any proposal from Europeans over its disputed nuclear program, saying the Islamic Republic will wait for the package until the close of P5 gathering in Vienna.
Pointing to the NAM gathering, Asafi said the Malaysian chair backed Tehran's nuclear entitlement, adding, efforts are also underway to drum up more support from other member states on the matter. Asafi also noted political manipulation of international organizations is not the solution to the ongoing problems, saying Iran truly believes in constructive talks based on mutual respect. As for the upcoming meeting of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany in Vienna, he said Tehran will not accept extra obligations beyond its NPT commitments.
And world oil prices leapt on Tuesday as traders absorbed new data pointing to buoyant Chinese energy demand. New York's main contract light sweet crude for delivery in July surged by $1.28 to $72.65 per barrel in pit trading. In London, Brent North Sea crude for July delivery soared $1.07 to $71.74 per barrel in electronic deals. 1 percentage point rise in the oil industry's production coefficient will mean a gain of $200 billion in revenues for Iran. Oil Minister Kazem Vaziri Hamaneh said Tuesday the projected petrodollars is to swell the government coffers if the crude output is traded at the current level, $40 per barrel. The oil chief further said his ministry is determined to raise the current production volume through well-organized plans to locate new resources and drill for oil.
Moroccan authorities are detaining members of the opposition justice and charity organization in a number of Moroccan towns. The spokesperson for the organization said that the police stormed the places where the members were meeting, arrested them, and confiscated their belongings.
Morocco is witnessing an unprecedented infiltration of security forces. This scene has been repeated in the past 3 days in different towns, the last of which were Wajda and Rabat, where the last of the confrontations took place between supporters of the justice and charity movement and security forces. Dozens of activists were arrested, then released, and their meeting places were searched and emptied of their contents.
نحن نتساءل لماذا هذا الهجوم خصوصا على المقرات
We are asking why these attacks on our headquarters, why break into the buildings, destroy nearly everything found inside, and confiscate the rest. What happened essentially constitutes theft. Our belongings were stolen illegally and without any just cause.
تمت سرقة كل التجهيزات بغير موجب شرعي.
The tension between security forces and supporters of the Sheikh Abdel Salam Yassin intensified a few months ago after his daughter Nadia Yassin was tried on charges of disrespecting the sovereignty of the king during an interview for a national newspaper. The Moroccan Human Rights Organization demanded a better and more practical solution to Islamist organizations, including the justice and charity movement.
We are demanding comprehensive reforms for this issue. This is what we are asking for in the Moroccan Human Rights Organization. Therefore, we are asking that the situation be resolved on a legally accurate basis that would satisfy everyone.
Meanwhile, the authorities chose a more security-oriented approach to deal with the organization, which is tolerated but not recognized as an official party. The confrontation between the justice and charity organization and security forces in Morocco is only making supporters of Abdel Salam Yassin more persistent. If the authorities continue on this course, the movement's supporters contend that it will serve to strengthen its position. During the third media festival in Baghdad, which was organized by Baghdad University, the university president, Dr. Musa Al-Musawi, said that the media college plays an essential role in building free media. The dean of the college, Hadi Al-Hiti, called for free but responsible media. Here is Ali Abdullah Khaliq.
The Baghdad University College of Media held the third media festival of Baghdad. Dr. Musa Al-Musawi, the president of Baghdad University, confirmed that the College of Media plays an essential role in establishing a free and responsible media at a time when the number of media outlets increase in the country as Iraq goes through an exceptional situation.
The role of the College of Media today is very critical and is desperately needed in an era when local and international media are crowded with all kinds of different news, analyses, and opinions, some of which often lead to inflaming public opinion rather than calming it.
Towards this goal, Dr. Hadi Hiti, the Dean of the College of Media, called for a free and responsible media far away from inciting violence and divisions.
There are ambitions for free and responsible media, but in reality, media outlets lack this greatly. We hope that the prospect of free and responsible media will be realized very soon. But what we have now is a type of media that incites hate and divisions between people. There are many shortcomings in our media that we hope to overcome in the near future.
Doctor, how do you think that the media can be free?
Media is free when journalists express what's in their hearts honestly and call for cooperation, love, brotherhood, and tolerance.
At the end of the festival, an exhibit opened displaying the photographs taken by students from the media college. They showed a documentary film and a cultural play, which expressed the painful reality in Iraq and the hopes for a solution through the spread of a free media culture and developing journalistic skills of future media professionals.
من جانب آخر تألقت الفنانة العراقية القديرة فريدة محمد علي في مهرجان.
The Iraqi artist Farida Mohammed Ali shined at the Maqam Without Borders Music Festival in the French capital Paris after touring Europe and the United States. Her voice carried the suffering of her homeland, Iraq, to foreign audiences. The details are in this report.
من القارتين. تفاصيل هذا المهرجان في هذا التقرير.
سيدة المقام العراقي هذا هو اللقب الذي
The Queen of Iraqi Maqam. This is how noted Iraqi singer Farida Mohammed Ali is known to her fans. She took part in the Maqam Without Borders Music Festival in Paris after touring America and Europe. Farida entered the Iraqi Maqam world at a time when it was entirely dominated by men.
سادت باحتكار هذا الفن العريق على الأصوات الرجالية.
كان هو يقدم في المقاهي يغنى في المقاهي البغدادية وفي المواليد النبوية وفي الأذكار.
It used to be sung in coffee shops and during religious festivals. The lyrics were sung in maqam, but they were all religious. Back then, women were forbidden to take part, so men ended up monopolizing the art. When I came on the scene, I decided to challenge the notion that women could not perform the maqam because it was too difficult for them. I wanted to erase this idea completely.
وألغيها إنه المرأة لا تستطيع أن تؤدي المقام أو الأشياء الصعبة.
The Iraqi Maqam is an old tradition which is characterized primarily by improvisation and the sounds of unique tones. It is made up of a specific number of notes that are usually accompanied by Eastern musical instruments. However, on religious occasions, all the instruments are eliminated with the exception of the percussion instruments.
أنا من تعرف من مدينة كربلاء اللي معروفة.
I'm originally from Karbala, which is known for its famous religious sites and religious singing. When I was a little girl, my mother or my aunt would take me to these areas. I used to really enjoy the singing and Quran recitation.
أحب جدا صوت الملائيات والقارئات القرآن.
ويعتبر المقام العراقي الذي يرجع تاريخه إلى 4 قرون من أكمل أشكال المقام بصفة عامة.
Iraqi Maqam goes back 400 years. Another one of its distinguishing characteristics is the mixture of Arabic and non-Arabic lyrics.
معينة دون أن تكون لها أي علاقة بالشعر المغنى وبدون ضرورة ظاهرة. علي محمد، الشرقية.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. programs which connect you to the world.